Hello there. Thank you for staying with us right here in Voice of the People, 90.3 FM. My name is Esther Wachuku, and here are the top stories. Fresh scarcity hits Nigeria in some states. Ndume discloses politicians, International Monetary Fund, World Bank driving Nigeria towards Venezuela. Adeboye hails subsidy removal, says God's intervention saved Naira from falling to 10,000 Naira per dollar. Federal government discloses Nigeria's press the freest amongst emerging democracies. And High Court judges in Rivers, Anambra suspended. Details now. Thank you for staying with us. Residents of some states in the country have been affected by fresh Naira scarcity despite increased supply from the Central Bank of Nigeria. According to reports monitored recently, the first scarcity has become increasingly noticeable in the past week, specifically in some northern states. Major states which are reported to be battling the cash crunch include Bauchi, Borno, Kaduna, Kano, Kebbi, Taraba, as well as some satellite towns of the Federal Capital Territory. The scarcity is coming amidst data from the Central Bank of Nigeria, revealing that the total currency in circulation has reached 4.14 trillion naira, with 3.87 trillion naira of this amount currently outside the banking system. Also, the CBN data revealed that currency in circulation in Nigeria has added 1.48 trillion naira, or 55.8% year-on-year, to 4.14 trillion naira as of August 2024, from 2.66 trillion naira in August 2023. Recently, television program, a point of sales operator in Borno State who spoke recently with the Daily Trust was of the opinion that some businessmen buying up grains on a large scale were said to be mopping up cash. Also, the operators say no longer get the required cash in banks and therefore have to depend on traders and petrol stations. Now, the senator representing Borno South, Ali Ndume, has accused politicians, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank of contributing significantly to Nigeria's economic woes. Speaking via a Monitor television program, Ndume warned that their actions are pushing the country towards a crisis similar to Venezuela's. The senator's remarks reflect his criticism of external economic policies and domestic political mismanagement, which he believes have combined to worsen the country's economic challenges. He emphasized the need for a more self-reliant and locally driven approach to economic reforms, urging leaders to prioritize the interests of Nigerians over external pressures. Ndume went told that if it wasn't the IMF that did that, noting that there were internal politics involved in all of what is going on in the country. Ndume responded, and I quote, "Now you are saying when we allow ourselves to be managed by somebody that doesn't know the environment or the condition we're operating, then you are getting it wrong." Ndume disclosed. Critics have complained and stipulated that Ndume was literally referring to the president not knowing what is going on within his environment. Now, overseer of the Redeemed Christian Church of God, Pastor Enoch Adeboye, has disclosed that if not for God's intervention, $1 would currently be equal to 10,000 naira. The RCCG General Overseer, who was among the critics of subsidy removal in 2012, said the decision of President Bola Tinubu to remove the petrol subsidy was good for the economy. Speaking at the Special Holy Ghost Congress in Abuja, Adeboye explained that before Tinubu's administration, the root of the country's financial issues was the importation of petrol. He decried that Nigeria was also wasting billions of naira on the 4 refineries without any result. He further accused those who were benefiting from the subsidy removal of creating problems in the country, stressing that, in quote, "We need help, and it's not human help, it's divine help." And still on the world news at 12, the federal government has said that Nigeria provides a conducive environment for journalists and operations. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, said among emerging democracies across the world, Nigeria's press is one of the freest. Mohammed Idris stated this while speaking on the theme on empowering Nigeria's fourth estate, legal frameworks and issues of media resilience and sustainability at an event in Lagos on Thursday. He noted that Nigeria's press has grown through huge investment investment and a viable enterprise for employment. The Minister of Information, while noting the challenges Nigeria's media was facing as a result of the current economic hardship, stressed that economic recovery is in top gear. Idris emphasized the need for a rethink in media business purposes beyond social political functions. He promised the government support by prioritizing transparency and sustained citizen participation and engagement. In a recent development, the National Judicial Council on Thursday suspended Justice G.C. Aguma of the High Court of Rivers State and Justice A.O. Nwabunike of the Anambra State High Court from performing judicial functions. VOP News gathered that the judges were both suspended for a period of 1 year without pay and placed on the watch list for 2 years thereafter. The decision was taken at the 107th meeting of the NJC, chaired by the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Honorable Justice Kudirat Kekereokun, on the 13th and 14th of November 2024. The council stationed a total of 57 judicial officers for various acts of misconduct. The NJC also recommended 2 heads of court for compulsory retirement over falsification of age. The duo of Chief Judge of Imo State, Honorable Justice T.E. Chukwuemeka Chikeke, and the Grand Kadi of Yobe State, Honorable Kadi Babagana Madi, were recommended for compulsory retirement for falsification of their ages. The council inquiry considered the reports of a preliminary complaints assessment committee, which considered a total number of 30 petitions and impaneled 6 committees for further investigation, while 22 were dismissed for lacking in merit, 2 were sub judice. The council also enacted a committee to investigate all complaints and petitions against Honorable Justice O.A. Ojo, Chief Judge, Osun State. You're currently listening to the World News at 12 right here on Voice of the People, 90.3 FM. We'll take a very short break, and of course, it's time for us to head into a news analysis segment where actually we'll be joined via the telephone with Barrister Fred Nzako, who is a political, national, social affairs commentator, also an economic strategist. Barrister Fred Nzako will be responding to some questions posed to him on some of the stories that were recently read out right here on the World News at 12. Do kindly stay with us. All right, thank you for staying with us. This is still the World News right here on Voice of the People, 90.3 FM. Barrister Fred Nzako, good afternoon and thank you for joining me today on the World News at 12.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Barrister, this information just coming in right now discloses that about 2 judges have been suspended. All right. That was on yesterday evening. Justice G.C. Aguma of the High Court of Rivers State and Justice A.O. Nwabunike of the Anambra State High Court for performing their judicial in Rivers, 1 person in Anambra. But there were specific judges that were mentioned, right? Barrister Fred Nzako, there were specific judges that were mentioned in that petition. They mentioned Justice Lifu, a couple of other justices as well, concerning the inconsistent judgments in Rivers State. Do you think that Justice Kekereokun is living up to expectations?
Well, it is too early to give such an assessment, and but it is a sign that everybody must wake up and sit up.
Okay.
Under Justice Kekereokun, she has fired the first salvo to indicate that the National Judicial Council will not tolerate any action or inaction by a judicial officer that is below expectation or below the judicial functions in office. That is important to say so, and it's also important for everybody to be conscious of that. But I want to also sound a note of warning that the suspension does not mean that they are guilty. The suspension is for them to give room for thorough investigation.
Yes, it was disclosed.
Into the allegation that is against them. And I want to let our people know that if after the investigation they are not found guilty, they will be restored to their seat. And that is setting the standard that when there is a very serious allegation against a public officer, such a public officer must recuse himself or herself and stand aside such that there will be no action that will undermine the process of investigation. And that such process of investigation must be fair, just, honest, and truthful, such that an innocent person will not be punished for a political consideration or any other primordial interest, while we make sure that the guilty is punished. So that is what it is, and let's watch and see how it will play out.
All right, Barrister. Like I said, in as much as you've explained what the process is and what it entails, what it involves, a couple of persons, critics, economic analysts, and even, will I say, some legal practitioners, were not actually hopeful of this panel accelerating the process of investigation based on some judges who were indicted. Now, you know that Nigeria's judiciary has really had a lot of, well, I would say the public relativity of Nigeria's judiciary has not been in good light. They've been seen to be biased or perceived to be biased in some of the judgments they've given, too much technicality in the, will I say, defense of their judgment, and a host of other issues which they feel does not actually manifest the objectivity on some judgments given by the Nigerian court. And this is one of the reasons which a couple of persons had attributed to the escalating tension in Rivers State. A couple of persons had felt that the situation in Rivers exacerbated to this point because the National Judicial Council, or the judiciary too, got involved by creating a fray, all right, between relationships and between persons who have used the judiciary for personal political gains. So in accelerating this process, do you think this is enough? How many more do you think is expected? Because 2 more other persons were asked to step down because of age falsification. A couple of critics feel that this is too little. They expected more than just these 2 judges, that they feel that the National Judicial Council or the judiciary already has become deeply penetrated, and a couple of them are actually corrupt in their disposition to their duties. What's your take on this?
Well, I know it is easy in the mouth of the public to say another person is corrupt, but at the end of the day, you find out that even the fellow who said of corruption may not be very clean in his personal dealings. That's why an English writer said that virtually everybody is corrupt, but anybody who is caught becomes the victim of corruption or becomes or wears the tag of corruption. It is obvious that National Judicial Council, or rather, the judiciary is one institution that is always in the eye of the storm. Judiciary is one institution.
Barrister Fred, you sound a little bit muffled. Can you come closer to your speaker? If you're using an earpiece, come closer to the mouthpiece.
I am as close as I can be.
All right, okay, sir.
The judiciary as an institution is one that has internal self-cleansing mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
Internal self-cleansing mechanism, and one of the reasons they seem to be always in the eye of the storm is because they are the last hope of everybody.
All right.
And it is very easy to find fault with the judiciary, even when we all know that we all have locks of wood in our eyes that we will want to remove the speck in the eye of the judiciary. Well, to whom much is given, much is expected. The judicial officer occupies a position of primacy and honor and respect in the society, and such a position should not be toyed with. And that is why that we should not have undue actions by the judiciary, and we should ensure that only men and women of integrity are appointed to the bench.
All right.
Having said that, we want to also say that for our country as a whole to have sanity, we all must embrace sanity.
All right.
We cannot be embracing unnecessary actions and corrupt attitudes and expect others to be not to be corrupt. Corruption is one terrible thing that goes round. It's like palm oil that once it touches one finger, it spreads to other fingers. So we must ensure that we run far from corruption so that we do not infect others with corrupt tendencies. So let's see how it goes. And it's also important that other institutions must as well have their inbuilt cleansing mechanism, so that by the time it goes round, we'll begin to have a better society and a better country.
All right, thank you so much for that, Barrister Fred Nzako. Let's look at a situation where there is supposedly a protest slated to hold on an undisclosed date by Occupy Imo Group. These are members of Imo State House of Assembly, and they're set to be under serious pressure to impeach Governor Hope Uzodinma. The former aide to the governor, his name is Ihekweme Fabian, said that the Occupy Imo Group would also submit documents of impeachment offense against Uzodinma, whom they accused of truancy. And of course, this was a statement that was made on Tuesday. Barrister Fred, do you think there's any possibility of this taking place? Because I am wondering how you intend to propose a protest for an impeachment when the state, particularly all the local governments in Imo State, the AC won. Obviously, during the off-season elections that Imo State actually was part of, Hope Uzodinma won in most of the wards in most of the local government. So how come these same individuals are protesting for an impeachment? When were they during the elections if they did not want him to be there?
If you look at the composition of the members of the House of Assembly in Imo State, it is the color of the composition that will tell you the likely actions that the House can take. If the House is composed mainly of the same political party with the governor, then it means that even the impeachment notice may be a ploy to make the or to bend to fit to one or two requests that may not be made public.
Okay.
Because if they presented a request, which in most cases may be bordering on personal interest or financial interest that will be to the benefit of the members, then they can use that as a subtle threat to want to get what they want. And then the governor will scamper to ensure that he meets up with their demands. But if the House, I do not, for now, I don't know the composition of the members of the House. If the party in power in Imo State does not have the majority, then it might be a political issue that may worry the governor. But if they are in the majority in the House, I can tell you that it's a matter of negotiation, and then they will withdraw the impeachment threat. But let us also say that impeachment is not an evil thing. It is enshrined in our Constitution as a check and balance against an executive action that does not go well with the people represented by the members of the House. Because the House of Parliament is the House of the people. The people there in the honorable members are representatives of the people. The action that the people themselves cannot take, the House of Assembly members can take on their behalf. So if the governor has misconducted himself to the extent that the people are fed up with his style, then the House has a duty to serve an impeachment notice and possibly go ahead to impeach him. But the one that will not be good is if such impeachment is predicated on selfishness or unnecessary politicking and not on the welfare of the people, then it can be called a political or fiduciary or transactional impeachment. But if it is predicated on serious issues that have to do with the welfare of the people, then one can say that they are following what the Constitution has prescribed.
All right, thank you, Barrister Fred. I'd love to ask you more questions on that, but we are very short of time. The final one is concerning the Arewa Youth Consultative Forum and the Northern Awareness Network. They have condemned the renewed calls. Because there have been calls for, INEC Chairman Professor Mahmoud Yakubu for him to be sacked by this administration. The Northern Group, however, a subsection of the Northern Group, are saying, no, we don't want him to be sacked. What you guys are doing is not right. Now, apparently, a certain group within the North feel that Mahmoud Yakubu is dangerous for Nigeria's democracy. In fact, they actually asserted that under Yakubu's administration, a lot of underachievement have been actually recognized. But, the chairman of NAN, that is Salihu Suleiman, expressed concerns that such calls for Mahmoud Yakubu's sack represents more than a personal attack on Professor Yakubu. They noted that they pose a threat to Nigeria's democratic foundation and also urged President Bola Tinubu and Professor Yakubu to remain steadfast in their dedication to upholding democratic values and the rule of law. Now, a subsection are asking for INEC's chairman to be sacked. Another subsection are saying, no, you don't do that, and that it is they're condemning the renewed calls for the dismissal of the INEC chairman. Do you think there should be an investigation into Mahmoud Yakub? I mean, if a lot of Nigerians are not happy with his conduct or the conduct within INEC, you remember that the court actually told him to, as soon as possible, parade the individuals or begin prosecution of the individuals who were involved in electoral malfeasance and malpractice. We haven't heard anything about that. All right, he hasn't responded. Remember Hudu Yunusa Ari, the Adamawa State Rec as well. We've not had any information about him. He's supposed to appear in court. The person who came to announce someone else as the governor of Adamawa, and meanwhile results had not yet been completely collated. So with all of those disparities, and you have subgroups, those calling for his sack, those saying he should remain, where does this place the organization, or the institution rather?
The old saying that one man's meat is another man's poison is alive and very prominent on political issues. On anything political, there are people who will say yes and there are people who will say nay. The ayes and the nays will always be available in politics. Some people will say Mahmoud is doing well. Some will say, oh, Mahmoud is the best, when they have benefited from Mahmoud's action or inaction. And some others will say that Mahmoud is the worst thing that has happened to Nigerian electoral jurisprudence and electoral experience, and that he should be sacked immediately. He should even be tried, prosecuted, and jailed. All these are individual and personal opinions.
Okay.
But then, what is the preponderance of such opinions? And what are the reasons why there are some such divergent views about who the personality of Professor Mahmoud is? The buck stops on his table as the chairman of INEC. So any action or inaction done by INEC as an organization, or even done by INEC officials representing the interests of INEC, people will always ask Mahmoud to explain. And if he fails to explain, he will be the fall guy. And that is why it is important that any leader in every organization must have his ears to the ground and have his eyes like that of an eagle around his organization, and ensure that the bad eggs in the organization are weeded off and punished. That way, there can be sanity in the institution, and then there can be increased trust of the people. The trust of people on INEC as we speak today is terribly bad. There is massive trust deficit. Nigerians generally do not trust INEC. And of course, if they don't trust INEC, they don't trust INEC chairman. And that is why many are saying he should not be there. But the question is, who will be there? If you don't change the structure of appointment of INEC chairman and INEC officials, it will remain the same thing. Politics will always be at play. And that is why we keep saying that the nature and the pattern of appointment of INEC officials is wrong and will never lead to sanity in our electoral process. It will never lead to that level of electoral process that we anticipate that will take this country out of the current doldrum. And you see that increasingly people are losing interest in the electoral process. People are losing interest in democracy. People are losing interest in even the nation and the national leaders because of this problem of structural deficiency in appointment of INEC officials. And until we change such deficiency, we will continue to complain. And such complaint will never end unless we restructure the system. So it's a long journey. It's a very, very long journey, in all honesty. 2027 is coming, and I tell you that it may not be different from 2023. We have never had it as good as we want because individual interests will always overshadow collective interest. And those individual interests is imputed by the politicians, the political parties, and political interests. Where is the interest of the masses? Where is the interest of the nation? Where is the interest of our democracy, and how do we make our country better? That
Thank
should be
you so
paramount
much.
on the lips of every Nigerian.
Thank you so much, Barrister Fred Nzako. Like I said, we've run out of time. I sincerely do appreciate your input right here on the World News at 12.
Many thanks.
You're welcome, sir. To wrap up here again, other top stories. Fresh cash scarcity hits states in Nigeria. Ndume discloses politicians, International Monetary Fund, World Bank driving Nigeria towards Venezuela. Adeboye Hill subsidy removal says God's intervention saved Naira from falling to 10,000 Naira per dollar. Federal government discloses Nigeria's press the freest amongst emerging democracies. And High Court judges in Rivers Anambra suspended. That's a wrap of the World News at 12. My name is Esther Wachku. Up next is Area Matter with Alajin. Afterwards, you have Matters. And of course, today, I'll be handling Matters. Take care and thank you for staying with us.